Right, welcome to another Pro Football Doc podcast. We had a great guest last week, Norv Turner. In a lot of ways, I think today's guest is as or more intriguing. Most of you probably know about him, yet most of you probably don't know about him. And that's the tease and the tagline here. So I've been fascinated by the whole thing, and I want to sort of figure it out here. And let's show you who this is. Our special guest today is Ari Meirov, who runs My Sports Update. And My Sports Update, for those of you who don't know, he's got like 500,000 followers, and it is the one aggregated spot of what I would call unbiased NFL news. And if you, and I think that's special. There's not really a spin on it. And I thought it was intriguing what you were doing and how you've grown so quickly because you have good content. And so let's bring on Ari Meirov, the man behind My Sports Update. Welcome to the show, Ari.
Thank you very much, Doc. I appreciate you bringing me on. I've been followed your work for a very long time, respect your work for a very long time, and it's great to be talking to you. I really appreciate it.
Well, congratulations. You sort of changed your Twitter and website a little bit, the My Sports Update. It looks great. And here's where I think we're quite similar and perhaps how we're different. We're talking a lot about NFL news, but I make no secrets about it. I'm not an injury reporter. I'm an injury analyst. I try and put an interpretation on it, whether video, whatever. And what I love about your account is it's very informative. It's one stop. If you just follow your stuff, you get all the news. And you don't try and always put a lot of spin on it. You try and play it pretty straight, which I think is interesting and intriguing.
Yeah, for sure. I started this account in 2013, so it's been a while. But the one thing that I wanted to do was, if you're an average NFL fan, it's really hard to follow everything that's going on because there's obviously 32 teams, and there is so much information that is coming out from various outlets. So my idea was to take everything that's going on, put it in one place for an average fan to understand everything that is going on around the National Football League. So if you're the average fan who's obviously working and doing your day-to-day thing, and you just want to catch up on all the notable things happening, I want to put it in one place for you to catch up without all the biased opinion, without all the other information you probably don't have to know about. And that's really how the account started. And that's how the account has grown up until this point. And the goal is to continue to do that and continue to pump out football information as it comes in up to the minute. I always tell people, turn on notification for the account, because if you do, you're not going to miss anything notable that's happening around the National Football League. And obviously, over the years, it's grown to the point where many, many people, whether they're involved in football or just a fan, are following it very closely.
No, that's a great thing. And the best part about your Twitter and whatever is you can never be accused of clickbait. I mean, because you're not trying to spin anything. You're just trying to say, look, one place, I'll give it to you, and then you make your own decisions as to what it really means. In some ways, look, I respect Mike Florio and Pro Football Talk. I mean, Pro Football Doc, right? And I've talked to Mike about it. He's been very kind, and he's not mad at my copycat Pro Football Doc. He thought it was flattering. But in some ways, Pro Football Talk reports, but then they add a cherry on top or try to and spin, and you don't. You give it very straight, and I applaud you for that. So I'm a little bit different or in between, but and by the way, you also have their website that your website has more articles, and then this does give you a little more of opinion, but still, I don't think you have much of an agenda here either. So with that, I would say congratulations. And I think that's partly the reason for your success. People just want to know the info.
Right, for sure. And I really started the website for one simple reason. So I started it maybe in 2016. And the only reason for starting the website was because there was content that just simply couldn't fit in a tweet. Back then it was 140 characters. And I was like, I know so many people have notifications on for the account. Now I don't want to send them 4 or 5 tweets about a story that is developing. So I just created a website, and over time it has developed as well. And I start posting some different stuff that fans might not know about. For example, last week I posted an article about Lamar Jackson, who is negotiating a contract extension with the Ravens, but he's doing it without an agent, without a certified agent. I think fans will be interested to know about such a thing that is going on, that a huge quarterback contract is about to go down, and he's doing it in a different fashion without an agent. Such a big contract has never happened without a certified agent. So we're trying to bring in also different avenues of stuff that fans might not know about and not be aware about. That's really where the website comes in as well. We also started a podcast as well, which right now is on hiatus, but I'm planning to bring that back as well. So besides for the Twitter account, we're trying to grow even more and more with other stuff and try to bring the fan into other stuff that they might not know about. For example, the Lamar Jackson extension.
Right. And so you don't pretend. You're not trying to get direct sources. You're saying you're collating, aggregating, so the average fan doesn't need to. You're not trying to call a GM or a coach or a player. So your life is easy. You just have to pay attention to what's coming across through all the other outlets.
Right. For now, that's how it is. But ultimately, my goal is to be able to do that as well as the account continues to grow, as more and more people become aware of it. I mean, the account has gotten to a point where we have coaches and whoever is on Twitter, like Matt Rule and Mike Vrabel, who are following the account, and other people in the front offices of teams who are following, and agents as well. So ultimately, the goal is to be able to do that as well. But as of now, we're just trying to get all the information that is informative, that's important, and that's accurate to be out there for the average fan to know what is going on.
So you started the account when you were in 2013, the Twitter account.
Yes. Yeah.
And you were how old then?
So I was 15 when I started it. So I was very young.
I knew the answer to that question I'm asking because I think that's fantastic, right? And so now you're at the ripe old age of?
I'm right now 23, so a bit older.
So 23-year-old working in the football business with 500,000 Twitter followers and so forth. And I wanted to have you on because I thought it was a fascinating story. And I do, Ari, thank you for the props earlier, but I do also follow my sports update because it's a good, clean way of doing it. Admittedly, I do it with lists, but here's the problem with lists. When there is breaking news, you get it 7 times. Because you get it from Schefter, and you get it from Rappaport, and you get it from Mike Garofalo, and you get it from Tom Pelissaro, and you get it from Jay Glazer, and you get it from Jason La Canfora, right? Because it goes boom, 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 here it comes. So if there's only one, you just say, just go to you, and you're around the clock. I mean, do you not sleep? I mean, you are around the clock with all of your posts. And literally the one, if you don't want the repeat things, you can just go. So I love that.
Right. You know, for somebody who's been doing it for this long, I figured out a way of knowing where things are coming from, when to expect it. For the most part, I've gotten it down to know where to expect things to come from in the NFL news cycle. So during free agency, obviously you're locked in. During draft season, you're locked in. I mean, right now we're basically in a dead period, but coming up on July 15th, for example, that's the deadline for franchise tag players to sign extensions. So you know there's a deadline that's coming up, and you should be ready for that to come up. So you kind of have an idea of where things are coming from. You have a good glimpse of where to expect things to come from. There are players during free agency, for example, who like to post stuff on their Instagram, and that's where you get information. For example, Drew Brees retired this offseason. I had a good sense that he's going to post that on Instagram and announce it himself. So I was kind of ready for that to happen. So for somebody who's been doing this for this long, I kind of have a good sense of where to expect things to come from. And that's really how I've been able to run this account so efficiently.
And so literally you're kind of a one-man show, but you do it all.
Right. It is a one-man show. And a lot of people are surprised to hear that sometimes because, you know, a lot of times under in the comments, you see you guys are amazing. You guys are the best. And really, there's no you guys. It's one person here who's doing everything. So there's been a lot of people who have told me maybe change the name to your personal name. We'll see if we do that. But for now, we're going to stick it the way it is. But it is something that people should know. It is a one-man show over here who's doing basically all the news and information that's going on around the league.
Well, I love the transparency. When I started, Ari, people are like, what do you know? You're watching football from your couch. And my report was, yes, I am. I'm not saying I've got anything, right? I mean, and that in social media in the world today, being authentic is very important, and you're very
Right.
authentic with what you're doing. And let me tell you something that, and we'll break this news to fans too of Pro Football Doc and otherwise. This off season, obviously with basketball, there's been a ton of injuries, and in part 2 of the Pro Football Doc podcast, we'll talk about that. We'll talk about some of the big baseball injuries that have happened. Of course, we'll talk about football in part 2. Part 1 is for the guests, but one thing for fans here is a special announcement. In some ways, I mentioned I copied Pro Football Talk some, right? In terms of injury collation, and the cherry on top is our injury analysis. But in some ways, we're going to be copying My Sports Update in terms of being the site. We're not going to announce contracts, and we're not going to do trades, and we're not going to do different things. But there's really no one place for collated injury content, especially with analysis. Yeah, there's some, fantasy sites, and Fantasy Labs does a good job, and different places do a good job. Roto-World does a good job, but it's basically the coach said X. Okay, the coach said X, but what does it mean? The coach said questionable. Like, we all know there's going to be a dozen New England Patriots on the injury report as questionable. We can have that, but what does that mean? Which hide the bacon? And by the way, I've said it many times, it's legal. Do you get it? I mean, what really is going on with Kawhi's knee right now? The chances, and we'll talk about in the second half, the chances of Trae Young returning to play in Game 4. In game, when he went down, we said he's ankle sprain and going to return, but now that potential more swelling, will he come back? With news and how effective? So injury, kind of what you're doing, but for injury landscape and across all sports. You're doing football soup to nuts, and congratulations to you for this. But what else is next on the horizon for you? You've got your website, you got this stuff. You're all of 3 years old. What do you do in your free time? What else is up your sleeve? Do you have any free time?
I mean, listen, I love working. I'm very into being a working person. So besides doing the football stuff, I do have other work here in New York as well, especially now during this dead period of the offseason where there isn't much going on. I mean, we're obviously following the Deshaun Watson stuff and the Aaron Rodgers stuff. I'm not expecting anything to happen here in the near future. So I do have other work here. I do have brothers here who work in real estate. I help them out. That is really my main hustle right now. So I also help them out as well. But besides for that, I mean, this football thing is really taking up a lot of my time. And the goal is to continue to grow it and eventually become something even bigger, potentially join with somebody. So I do have plans, obviously, for the near future. The podcast, which was going really well, had a lot of great guests that came on over the last year. I put it on hold for now because I want to revamp it and make it even better. So that's something that I'm working on as well. And I mean, eventually just continue to grow this thing, continue to pump out football information, and continue to see the growth with the account. Eventually, I mean, it already is big, but just to become the main place for everyone to get their news from. And that's really what I want it to be.
All right, that's awesome. So is there a that you know of an NBA equivalent of you or a baseball equivalent of you? Who would it be?
So I don't really think there is an MLB one. There are various NBA people who are doing
Turnover
it.
OR2. Turnover OR2.
I apologize. We literally, Ari, I ran a little long in surgery. We're literally in a side room of the OR here, and that was an OR loudspeaker. No, I don't have a patient asleep on the table kind of thing. But this mask is not for COVID, it's for surgery. And yes, I took off my funny blue hat from the surgery room here. So I apologize for that cut in, but go ahead.
I thought we were doing part 2 of the podcast already. I'm kidding, but no,
yeah,
when
live
it comes
surgery part 2. We're gonna go into the room. Yeah. So, anyways, you're saying baseball, you don't think so, but basketball.
Baseball, I don't think so. Just because, like, I don't really see the younger fans really getting into it right now, so I don't really see it. I don't see any account on Twitter for baseball. Basketball, there are a number of people who are doing it. The problem that I have is that it's getting filled up with advertisements, which I think ruins an account in a way because there's too much going on over there, whether it is clickbait links or just retweeting stuff that are, stuff that the average person doesn't want to see. So like there are a few people who are competing with each other. I don't follow it that closely, but there are people for basketball because NBA Twitter is much larger than NFL Twitter, surprisingly. I mean, they're more active in a way. So there are a few accounts there. But when it comes to baseball, I don't think there are. When it comes to football, I think, one that is consistently putting out stuff. I believe I'm the only one. So that's where we are when it comes to Twitter.
Well, all right. We're going to shortly take a break here and come back with some analysis. Ari, thank you very much. And I think my Pro Football Doc podcast, I wanted to have you on because what you did was so unique. I mean, you started this when you're 15. I can't imagine what you're going to do when you turn 30 here in all your time. So Ari, thank you very much for your time and for your time here on the Pro Football Doc podcast.